Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to this session on Egypt and Netherlands together towards sustainable water management and water rationalization in the agricultural sector. And I see that we are currently with about 43 participants. So I'd like to welcome you all. And I'd also like to say that whenever somebody does a presentation, then please for the others to shut off their screen. Can I therefore ask our ambassador, or my ambassador actually, Maurits Schaatveld, to please give some welcome remarks for this session.
Good afternoon. I'm Maurits Schaatveld. I'm the, I would say, new 6 weeks Netherlands ambassador in Cairo. And I am very happy that in my first month here, I already can participate in the Cairo Water Week, something which we at the Netherlands find a very important activity, and that's also why we are contributing to it in this way. Too bad that I can't meet all of you in the flesh, as we say, but we was built, and we inaugurated agricultural areas with subsurface drainage. We also then started a joint water panel, which has been working since then. In the 90s, we had very large irrigation projects in the Fayoum, which ran for about 10 years. And we also have cooperation in all kinds of other fields related to water, notably also dredging the Suez Canal, taking part in the extension of the Suez Canal, and other dredging activities in different lakes of the Nile River, where we hope to help Egypt conserve and store more water, especially in these difficult times. It's of course very clear, as I said, that we want to take part and support this important event. Let me welcome especially the participants. The week has already started, of course, because we're Wednesday and we started on Monday. And we have heard that it was a very interesting contributions. And we definitely hope that this Dutch panel, at least Dutch organized panel, will keep up the same levels. Let me welcome also all the speakers for this afternoon, who are going to give you all the necessary information on this. I wish you a very successful meeting, and I would like to pass the microphone to Marjolein Jongman, our Head of Cooperation and Economic Affairs, to take over the program. Thank you very much, and hope to hear a lot of beautiful things.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador. Indeed, my name is Marjolein Jongman. I am Head of Economic Affairs and Development Cooperation at the Netherlands Embassy here in Cairo. And we are very pleased to have this opportunity to present our water program along with our partners to an audience all interested in water. Because I think that water is very relevant for Egypt, as it is for the Netherlands. Because, also in my home country, water is everywhere, and it also plays a big role in life, as well as for opportunities in our economy, culture-wise, etc. Back in 2018, the Netherlands Minister for Development Cooperation and International Trade decided to put Egypt back on the list of countries that would be recipients of development cooperation money. This was also seen in the light of a country where aid and trade, which are two parts that are part of her portfolio, would be combined. And it was then decided, there was a scoping missions, etc., to see what we would be doing in Egypt. And, no surprise for us at least, that water would be one of the important topics in the program. Since then, our team, and that later you will hear one of the speakers, Ivo van Haren, but also Peri Haan Aram, they've been working hard, along with other colleagues in the embassy, to get our water program developed. Now, water can be approached from a great many angles. The different angles in regards to water that we've chosen, because since 2018, we are now in 2020, and our program is coming very much up to steam. The different programs that you're going to see this afternoon in this session is going to be on also a wide variety of topics concerning the strengthening of climate resilience and food security through livelihood enhancement and rural innovation in Upper Egypt, with our partner WFP, the World Food Programme. Also, an organization that's going to be active on this is Solidaridad, who will also give a presentation on their activities, which are very much focused on global digital innovation, especially for farmers in the area. Next, we'll have a different presentation on joint cooperation in applied research on water in Egypt, and that presentation will be given by one of our other partners, which is Dr. Mohammed Youssef from Deltares, which is an organization very much focused on water. And he will also give us an insight in lessons learned from Dhaka and Jakarta, two programs where there's also been embassy involvement, but then of course our embassies over there. Then last but not least, there will be a presentation by one of the colleagues working at the embassy, our first Secretary on Water and Food Security, Ivo van Haren, who's going to focus on controlled drainage, improved irrigation methods, and reuse of agricultural fresh drainage water in Egypt, which is a program that's about to start in this year. As you can see, these are on the one hand topics like climate resilience, food security, as well as irrigation methods, as well as more knowledge approach to water in the applied joint cooperation and applied research. With these different aspects of our water program, we hope to contribute to discussions on water and different aspects of water usage, improving of the water usage in Egypt, and bringing in experience that we have gained in the Netherlands. So I think it's going to be a very interesting program. As far as the moderation of the session, I'd like to say that after every presentation, and I would ask the speakers to please try and limit their presentation to the time allotted, so there will be sufficient time also for people to ask questions. Where there's also, by the way, some room left at the very end of the program. And then I would like to ask you to keep your questions and make them concise. So short and crisp. With that, I'd like to go over to the first speaker from WFP, Ms. Nagle Atef, who's going to do a presentation on a big program of ours in our portfolio, strengthening climate resilience and food security through livelihood enhancement and rural innovation in Upper Egypt. Can I give the floor to you?
Thank you so much, Marlijn. I'm just trying to put my the presentation on the screen. Just here. Can see it now?
Yes. No. Well, it's blue again. Blue screen.
Now?
Yes.
Can you see it? Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for this introduction, and I would like to thank all the attendees for this session. And yes, we're going to talk about our WFP project that we have with in partnership with Netherlands. And actually, we are also partnering with the Solidaridad. So Monique from Solidaridad will talk about the digitalization part under the same project. Yeah, let me start by giving you like an overview about WFP, where we are and where are we going. WFP has been working in Egypt since 1968. And the focus is on building resilience of vulnerable communities and on enhancing food security. So this has been the focus since 1968. I've been working to support the government in a lot of initiatives and projects that focus on these two pillars. Starting 2018, actually, WFP has adopted a new approach, and what we call it the holistic approach, or it's kind of a 360 approach where we focus on the rural household. So we put the rural families, or families the rural household in Upper Egypt at the center of our program to be like the nucleus of our support. So as you can see in the slides, we put the household members and the household at the center, and we develop a set of interventions that address the needs of each member of this household. So we support children in schools in rural areas. We support infants and mothers through nutrition support. We support women to support their economic or to work on their economic empowerment through provision of trainings and capacity building and microloans and so on. We support youth to enhance their employability and access to green jobs. And of course, because the rural areas are predominantly, relies predominantly on agriculture, so we develop a whole set of interventions to support the smallholder farmers. And this is actually where the presentation or the project today falls under. Of course, to implement the program, we work closely with the government on both levels, on the strategic and the high level, because we usually make sure that all our programs are aligned with the big national strategies for sustainability reasons and for the adoption of the country. And this is, again, a new approach that we are taking to look at the strategies on the government level, and we fill the gaps and we support these strategies. And we also coordinate on the local level with all the governments we work in on the local level, so that we have, over the years, we have a strong grassroots outreach to the communities and to the people, because we work through what we call the community-based approach, or bottom-up approach, to work with the people and the communities to get their buy-in and to get their ownership to the programs we are doing. We have been supporting the smallholder farmers for years. We have implemented a lot of initiatives that help in supporting the resilience to climate change and to support their productivity and technical capacity and so on. And because of the proven success, actually, we have worked on more than 60 villages now, doing a lot of intervention that we will go further in details later in the presentation. And upon the government request, we decided to upscale our intervention to reach up to 500 villages, actually, which is also aligned with the government plans to reach the 500 poorest village or highest vulnerable villages, to do kind of a 360 transformation. So again, using this holistic approach, our target is to reach 500 villages, to do a full transformation to these villages, with a focus definitely on supporting the smallholder farmers. And fortunately, Netherlands was actually one of the main supporters and first supporters of this ambitious plan to reach these 500 countries. So after discussion, field visits, and a lot of missions, we started the project that we call Strengthening Climate Resilience and Food Security through Livelihood Enhancement and Rural Innovation. This is the title of the project that we started last year. Under this project, we are aiming to reach 60 villages, again, with the highest poverty rates and with the highest challenges in terms of agriculture and water, definitely, in Upper Egypt, and specifically southern Egypt, Asyut, Suhail, Ina, Luqsor, and Aswan. The project itself has a specific outcome that mainly focuses on enhancing enhancing the efficient use of the main resources, the natural resources, the land and the water. So we are aiming at improving the agriculture practices. We are aiming at establishing the water user association to enhance the irrigation and to enhance the use of water, and to develop climate information centers and early warning systems to enhance the adaptation to the climate change. The project started by us identifying the key issues. So we asked ourselves, what are the key issues that we want to respond to in these areas? We found out that, again, the main umbrella challenges are the inefficient use of the two main resources, the land and the water. And this is because of different reasons, on top of which is the land fragmentation. Almost, or like more than 90% of the farmers in Upper Egypt are smallholders that own less than 1 fiddan. So the problem is that whatever they do in this very small plot, the impact is limited. They can do nothing with this small plot. And consequently, there is limited water resources or limited or inefficient irrigation system, again, because the land is very small. Adding to that, the severe exposure to climate risks and the problem of scarcity of water, all of this led to limited livelihood opportunities coupled by gender disparities. So you'd find that the umbrella reason or the umbrella challenge is the inefficient use of water and land, and then followed by a list of whole challenges that are complicated and interrelated to each other. And the cross-cutting thing or the main thing is the land fragmentation. That's why when we developed the program, we looked at all of these challenges and we took them into our consideration, and we start what we call the community-based participatory approach program. So to start the design and the implementation and everything from bottom, from talking to the farmers, from the dealing with the CDAs, the Community Development Association, to identify these challenges and to see how can we address these challenges, with the main objective of supporting them for efficient utilization of water and land to be able to solve the problems. I don't want to go into much details, but I want to quickly go through some of the activities that we call simple techniques to enhance the management of the resources, the water and the land. And definitely because of the main challenge that we see is the land by the land consolidation. And by land consolidation, we mean that we bring the farmers together with the support of the CDA, the Community Development Association. We support them to arrange themselves into groups of 40 to 80 to consolidate the land, remove the barrier, to work on large scale, to work on bigger scale and bigger plots. And this will definitely allow them for better services, for accessing more services, introduce mechanization, facilitate the access to fertilizers and seeds and so on. And of course, consequently, the management of the water is better when the lands are consolidated, because there are some sort of alignment between the farmers and over bigger distance or bigger spaces. So the irrigation becomes easier and more aligned and more managed. And it resulted in 10 to 15% reduction in the water usage. We also in reducing the amount of water in irrigation by around 25%. So it reduces the seepage. It allowed the farmers at the end of the canals better access to water, which used to cause a lot of problems between the farmers before the consolidation. And it also reduced the pumping cost, which represents another layer of burden to the farmers. So as you can see in the presentation, the very picture on the left is the earth canal. This is what, and you can see that a lot of wastes are thrown there, so the flow of the water is really was really bad. And then we move to the line canal. We don't stop at that. We usually look at how to develop things further. So we just introduced the covered canal, which will further enhance the saving the water from one side, and it will decrease the evaporization, and it has a lot of benefits that is even better than the line canal that we introduced before. And we are also aiming at introducing drip irrigation on the land soon. We introduced and we implemented the laser leveling, and it's part of the package that we are going to implement in the 500 villages. And it's mainly to avoid the uneven distribution of water. So it's also helped in decreasing the water consumption on irrigation by around 20% using the laser beam to do the leveling of the land. And we use the raised bed cultivation, which also a technique that helps the farmers to decrease or to save water by almost 15%. So all of these techniques were tested over years and piloted in many plots, and they proved to be successful. But we are working also on enhancing them as we go. We also introduced new saving crops and varieties. Farmers there, they usually rely on the traditional crops that they use. But when we remove the barriers and when we consolidate the land, actually the size of the land increased. So they gained more land, and we introduced some new varieties that they never used to use before, like fennel, like hibiscus, which has also some economic value to enhance their income and to enhance their production. And we also introduced new varieties of sugarcane, which supported in decreasing the water consumption from 10 to 15%. Back to the challenge with opportunities, because of all of the other challenges starting from the land fragmentation, the livelihood opportunities are really low in the underdeveloped villages, especially for women, with some gender disparities that are very obvious because it's a male-dominant sector in general. So we added livelihood opportunities that target specifically women. Through supporting the animal production, providing them with in-kind loans of goats and ducks and things that are culturally acceptable at their side, and at the same time offer opportunities for income generation for them. We also started by introducing some agro-processing. We started by the sun-dried tomato, which also allowed for some job opportunities and income generation for the women there, and it also increase the price of produce multifold and further usage of the products of the farmers. We do not stop at that. These are all the activities that have been tested and implemented in various plots and in different villages that we worked in. And in the next phase, because all of these techniques have proven success, and we are proceeding and expanding and upscaling in them, we are now thinking of taking the farmers to another level. So our objective is to make these communities independent, to no longer need our own intervention. To do that, we need to work on sustainable, innovative techniques that the farmers themselves will adopt to be able to be viable for financial services, for loans, for whatever. So we'll start with introducing the agriculture waste management project in these areas. Again, besides its environmental benefit, it will allow for more income, for more job opportunities inside these communities. We're also partnering with the banks, the national banks, National Bank of Egypt, Agriculture Bank of Egypt, and a lot of private sector and international banks as well, to facilitate the access between the farmers and these financial institutions. And this is also aligned with the financial inclusion strategy that the government has. So before land consolidation, when the farmers own less than 1/5, then they have a big challenge of accessing financial services, of course. It's because of the farmer himself will not be viable and will not be able to access these financial services. But after the consolidation and after working through the CDAs, they become a big group, and the production increase. They have a lot of benefits that allow them to access these financial services. So we are working with the banks now to give them training and to allow for them the financial products and financial services, again, to make them independent, to access these sources so that they do not need direct support from organizations like us anymore. And the last thing we are introducing, to make use of this digital transformation that is prevailing in the country, we are introducing the digitalization and institutional capacity through providing good agricultural practices and water management using digital tools. And for that, I would like to give the floor to Monique from Solidaridad to give us more information about, or to talk more about the digital plans area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nagla. Let me share my screen and start this presentation. When we received the challenge from WFP, one thing that made us extremely pleased was to see the amount of work that had been done in building up community capacity and building trust with communities. And that really is the foundation of any process that is going to do innovation at community level. So we are innovating on really strong foundations of trust and social capital that have been developed at community level. Solidaridad is a global civil society organization with over 50 years of experience in working with farmers over 37 countries. We come from a history of building certifications. We engendered the Fair Trade certification and have been working on building better markets and better working conditions for farmers throughout our history. But increasingly, we have transitioned to more territorial approaches that really look at the dynamics at community level and support communities to improve better, to access local and international markets. For this project, we thought that it was important to bring key expertise on water management from the marketplace. So we contacted Nederlandse Schulmans, which is a Dutch organization that has done tremendous work systematizing and building water management systems worldwide. And so I would like to introduce Alexander from Nederlandse Schulmans so that he can take over and present a little bit of his work, and then we will show how we are implementing and systematizing that work throughout the project.
Thank you, Monique, for handing over the presentation. Let me see if I can share my slides with you. So it should be popping up now. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexander Hoff. I work for Nederlandse Schulmans. I'm honored to introduce the technologies we're going to bring in this project. Maybe to shortly introduce Nederlandse Schulmans, and my apologies for the inconvenient name for non-Dutch speakers because it's incredibly hard to pronounce. We are an SME from the Netherlands, and we're specialized in water and IT. And we've been doing that for over more than 20 years now, and we're currently with about 75 highly qualified people for this. We are focused in two lines. We provide solutions for water, climate, and environment, and develop as well our own software to support this. And while our company's mission statement is to support data-driven, informed decision-making to contribute to a healthy, safe, and resilient living environment. And in this project, we are very keen in supporting Solidaridad, but more importantly, the WFP, and of course, the embassy in their mission with this. So maybe to summarize shortly in one slide what we will contribute to this initiative. So what we will try to do, and this is also something that became clear in the presentation of Nagla, is that the water management system in the villages is becoming more sophisticated. It's becoming more complex, and that requires more sophistication in the decision making on how you're going to use that water. And a lot of research has been done in this purpose for this purpose. And what we will try to do is to bring this to the next level with new technologies and making it actually applicable in the field. So what we will do is that we will take data on the water and agricultural status from a wide range of sources. We will take satellite images that provide a regional overview of the area and combine that with sensor data, but also more on ground level water level measurements, and combine all that data into a solution, because nobody's interested in reading a single sensor, right? So what we will do is we will use this data to create insight in the performance of the water system as a whole. And we do that by integrating the data on a system level and applying data science analysis techniques to create this overview of the system performance. And it's a bit like a giant puzzle where the data source are the individual puzzle pieces, and only by putting the pieces together the bigger picture becomes clear. So by putting this data together, we are going to create a more sophisticated, more detailed image of the water and agricultural system than was possible before. And that gives the best insight in the current status. And we will use hydrological and hydrodynamical modeling to predict the behavior of this system in the future. And by making those kind of model predictions, you can create key point indicators that tell you what how the system can be used, what it is, what water is available, and how you can use that information in your decision making. So creating that advice, the information needs to be translated to various stakeholders, like this was already explained. And this is a very, very important step, because each stakeholder, each actor in this has a different information need. So it really needs to be translated to a field level. And for this, we're glad to be working with Solidaridad and the other partners with the expertise on this. And with that, I would like to give the floor back to Monique to explain this further.
So whenever we present Alexander's very sophisticated models, the first question that I usually get is, how is the farmer going to look at this, and how will he interpret this? So I think that is the big question that we have to answer today, is what does this mean for, can you guys see my screen? I hope so. What does this mean for our little farmer? And what we've learned from deploying over 26 digital tools in 50 programs with close to 400,000 farmers is that the right tool for the farmer is the one that he's going to use. So using a human-centric design approach at community level for digital innovation is crucial. You need to talk to people, see what their capacities are. You will have issues of language, of terminology, of connectivity, of access to phones, but we find issues as much as, a lot of manual laborers have trouble pressing small buttons because their hands are so used to manual labor that they have motricity issues. So you have to really go from the bottom up and see what kind of information will resonate with them, and what the cultural and social norms around use of information are going to be, so that you can find something that they will want to use, because that's the only way that you're going to scale. Another key issue is you need to find those anchors at community level that are going to spur the formation of a support system for those farmers, so that they have people to go to for advice and for services. And in that sense, the work that the CDAs have done with the support of WFP to strengthen themselves and become these anchors at community level is crucial to our capacity to really design a methodology that is scalable for Egypt at the scale that WFP current ambition are. So here are a couple of tools. I will leave the slides for people to consult afterwards. This has been a tool that we designed for field teams and for lead farmers to help manage support to farmers and collect evidence and systematize work plans. This is a tool that we developed for farmers so that they can do record keeping. That is being used in several of our pilots worldwide. You can see it's very visual. The buttons are big. These are the types of consideration that you have to take into mind when you're designing for farmers. But we also do a lot of voice recognition work. So with farmers who have literacy issues, we also send them voice-based messages so that they can hear the information they need and answer pressing 1 or 2 on feature phones. They don't need a smartphone. They don't need Wi-Fi connectivity or anything to receive information. And so we need to take that information that is sophisticated, that is being created by our system, and distill it into language and channels that make sense for farmers, because that's the core of good communication. I think another thing that is crucial is, as you have seen, the WFP has done tremendous work in systematizing good practices for farmers. And we want to take that a step further and really make that a key element of the database, so that the climate resilience practices that are being rolled out can be rolled out by CDAs, by agricultural colleges, by companies, by whoever they are, and that there is an overall systematization of this knowledge and homogenization of the support that farmers receive. When we are talking about improving water management from a social angle, we need to see the impact that each drop of water is going to have on local livelihoods and local food security. So a more holistic, human-centric lens is required. And so we need to understand good agricultural practices, as crop choice, soil management, but also bookkeeping, access to financial services, post-harvest care and marketing. And we need to understand how those different aspects are going to affect those livelihoods and improve their capacity to adapt to the stresses of climate change. As you have seen, there have been massive gains in WFP's project so far in improving water management. We are going to slowly begin to pilot drip irrigation in certain villages and see if we can have the results that we have had in Solidaridad. We've managed to increase water efficiency in some of our pilots in India, but also in Brazil by up to 60%, and really have a dramatic improvement to yields and incomes of farmers. What we need to take into consideration, though, when we do drip for farmers is, first and foremost, it can be expensive. And so when you take a farmer who has a fragile livelihood strategy and you add a massive cost, yeah?
I'm afraid that the presentation is not on the screen, so try to share it.
The presentation is not on the screen. Oh, let me try again. Is it now?
It was before.
Thank you for bringing me back. It's a shame that you could not see the slides. So when we are piloting drip irrigation, it's crucial that we take into consideration the cost and how that will be amortized over the livelihood of that farmer in the coming years. And it's crucial also that we understand that adopting such a new technique in his livelihood requires him to change the package of agricultural practices and the behaviors that he has on his farm. So we really need to work with these communities to pilot not only the irrigation. I have seen so many drip irrigation systems abandoned in corners of fields of farmers because they did not receive the right technical assistance, and they were not accompanied in changing that behavior over time so that they could make the best use of the system. So we really need to give it a very intense shot to make sure that this new technique is adopted by farmers and that we are able to systematize the learning so that we can scale. Another key preoccupation that we have is being gender sensitive and gender mainstreaming in the water management use that we do. So as you saw from Alexander's system, we are going to be taking very high level information and also field information, and that has to be gender sensitive. We need to understand how different family members are using water within the property and what are the different needs, so that we can give advice that promotes inclusion rather than exclusion. Unequal power relations regarding assets in the family need to be very carefully considered when you are providing advice, because you could have unintended effects. So we need to co-design with communities, with women, and we also need to make sure that we create tailored channels for women to participate and to access information, because a lot of the times they are less likely to go to trainings. They have substantially less access. We have seen this in a lot of our projects. If there's a prevalence of smartphones in the community, it's likely that the women don't have them, that they will not have access to them. So we really need to make sure that we are sensitive to these dynamics at community level, so that we lift them up when we intervene rather than reinforce some of the cultural patterns that we see. This has to be done also in a way that is culturally sensitive, because our goal is not to disrupt the cultural fiber of communities, but to uplift the women. And so you have to be very careful also that your approach is not generating more conflict and is well perceived by the community members. So a lot of care is required there. And then I think the key element that we need to consider is we are designing here for scale. So we are consistently thinking how we are going to get out when we get in, because we need this to be financially viable, legitimate, and sustainable for the communities and the region where we are working. So we need to immediately start finding the business models and the institutional anchors and the trade relations that are going to sustain the costs and the maintenance of a digital system for communities. And the first thing that you need to consider when you do that, and that's an issue that comes up a lot, is it needs to work. If your thing works, you will find a business case for it. And so our main concern is really to make sure that this is adopted and that farmers see a benefit. But we do need to start weaving those relationships and working with a lot of the really innovative fintech and agri-tech companies that are coming up in Egypt, so that we can integrate what we are doing into what they are doing and embed our systems together, so that this will be strong and resilient and scalable for the future. That is all for me today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monique. And also thanks to our speakers, Nagle and Alexander Hoff of Nederland Schuurman. During the presentation, actually the first one, WFP, there was a question from a participant from Morocco, Wassissou Romaisa, who was wondering what are the problems encountered by water use associations in the management of water irrigation, and also how are these water use associations created. Could you say something about that, Nagle?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so for the water user association, how they are established, they are okay. There was a challenge actually at the beginning on the legal part of it, because the water user association, the CDAs, the Community Development Associations, are registered under the Ministry of Social Solidarity as a kind of an NGO. So what we do is that we establish the water when we group the farmers together through the CDA. We then establish the water user association, because they now have kind of an entity that they belong to, which is the CDA. So they are able to establish the water user association over the canal, after lining the canal. So the group of the farmers who we consolidate their lands together are affiliated to the CDAs, and they are able legally then to establish the water user association that manage this canal, this new canal. Sorry, what's the other question?
It was about how the water use associations or user associations were created, and I think you already partly answered the other question, the problems encountered.
The problems in water, in the irrigation in general. So what the main challenge they had when the lands are fragmented is that everyone is, so there is an earth canal that is where a lot of farmers with very small plots use. So they share together, or they pay for the pumping of the water, and the problem is that the earth canal is not helping them, and the water flows is really very weak. So sometimes the farmer at the very end of the plot suffer from a shortage of water. So there was a lot of fights between the farmers, because they pay for the pumps, but the water, they don't have access to the water because of the fragmentation of the land and because of the inefficiency of the canal itself. So these are the main challenges they used to face, besides the climate change risks and the shortage and the scarcity of the water itself. So looking at these challenges, we started by the consolidation. So now it's one plot. So they are now dealing with it as a big plot that they all own. That's from the land side, and from the water side, the canal, lining the canal, make the water flow easier, make it efficient, it consume less land actually, because the earth canal is the width is wider in the earth canal, has a lot of width inside. So that's how things improve after the consolidation. I hope I answered your question, or I missed something.
No, I think you answered the question. Yeah, in view of the time, I think we have one other question, which is from the same participant, Ramaisa Wasisu. How can we model the volumes of irrigation water in the event that the pumping is done illegally from wells and boreholes? And that's also to you, Nagle.
Sorry, the internet was cutting.
How can we model the volumes of irrigation water in the event that the pumping is done illegally from wells and boreholes?
From our experience, or the parts that we are dealing with, it's actually the pumps are detected by the government, so they pay for it and it's used. And this part also I forgot to mention during the presentation. They used to use diesel for the pumps, and they pay for it. And what we introduced recently is the solar power, a solar panel over the canals, to be able to use the pumps using the solar energy rather than the diesel. So it's the only source of water they use, at least for the farmers that we deal with. The only source of the water is through the canal. We enhance the canal itself, and we enhance the pumping system through the solar energy, so that the farmers do not suffer from the diesel cost and so on. So this is our experience with the land that we worked in and the areas of the villages that we work in.
Okay, thank you. I saw some other questions, but at the same time also looking at the time. So I'd like to thank Nagle and also Monique and Alexander for their presentations, and we'll see whether we can answer the questions that were answered late or asked later on. In the meantime, I'd now like to continue with the next presentation, which is on a different, completely different item, which is the Joint Cooperation in Applied Research on Water in Egypt program. And I'd therefore like to give the floor to Dr. Mohammed Youssef, who is an expert advisor and senior project manager and regional manager at Deltares, which is a foundation on water management in the Netherlands. Mohammed, over to you.
Thank you, Marjolein. First of all, I would like to thank Marjolein, Ivo, Perihan, and the entire Dutch Embassy team for organizing this session. And I would like to really congratulate the WFP team for this. I mean, it's no wonder that you took the Nobel Prize. It's really tangible achievements on the ground. Today, I would like to present a different phase of the possibilities for cooperation. It's around the joint cooperation in applied research to support water. And I would like to go first from experiences from past programs, and how does this help us or helped us to set up a program for Egypt. The basic idea here is we try to bridge a knowledge gap or a supply, the gap between the supply and demand of knowledge to facilitate water management in an applied manner. On the left-hand side, you have the knowledge components where there are many disciplines that supports the decision-making. You have new trends in digitalization. You have new concepts emerging because of climate change, the adaptive concepts, and you have the classical, let's say, important participatory approaches, the importance of pilots. And on the right-hand side, specifically for Egypt, we have the National Water Resources Master Plan, the NWRP 2037. We have the typical societal questions like the safe water, clean water, sufficient water, etc. And you have a new international trends on the SDGs. So how do we connect these two? I will take you first for a trip from Indonesia to Bangladesh, and then how does this affect Egypt with the program starting in Indonesia, the historically the oldest, and then going to Bangladesh, and then our plans for Egypt. I will go first by introducing the setup and explaining what were the lessons learned and how does this affected us in setting up a program for Egypt. Indonesia is a bit of a longer term program. It has been running for 9 years. It's going into its 10 years now. 9 partners. The program in Indonesia was really focusing on, let's say, a technology push driven, focusing on solutions and tools, trying to create platforms, models, etc. It was organized in a way that included 9 partners, also due to the historical history of it, executed in 9 work packages. In fact, each work package can be considered as a project. Some of it addresses the institutional development components, and others really focusing on creating operational systems for early warnings, drought early warning, flood early warning, etc. From the experience in Bangladesh, there was a very important lesson related to the sustainability of the knowledge development. There is a lot of dynamic movement in the young population in Indonesia so you educate people, you train them, you enable them to do the work, and then simply they move to another place. So it was very important to a priority should be given to to create an institutional setup that can consolidate this knowledge. Another thing is the issue of local ownership and engagement. It's important that it is really nourished, and this can be guaranteed also by increasing the cross-cutting relations or the cross relations between the disciplines. So also the experience teaches us from even a small project or a project that has a lifetime of 3 years. It needs to be flexible because of the developing needs and the emerging demands. We have to realize that with these type of projects, when you take a step, the ministries or the authorities or the government realizes that new opportunities are there, and the question somehow changes. In fact, it is not changing, but it's evolving. So it's really important to allow a large degree of flexibility in these type of projects. Traditional training is useful. However, the highest value can be achieved by the joint execution of activities by on-the-job training. So this is something also that very much was recognized. Working with PhDs, master students is beneficial and always pays off because the level of commitment from PhDs and master students is very high in Indonesia. Tools and products must be developed on a need-to basis. So this was an important also during the setup of these tools. The more that it is demand-driven, the more commitment there is. For example, the early warning system for Jakarta highly benefited from being, let's say, a demand-driven tool. Going to Bangladesh, so this was a program that was set up on following the Bangladesh Delta Plan, a very clear goal to set up a long-term cooperation. So this is the first phase of the cooperation in Bangladesh after the Delta Plan, and it's mostly focusing on increasing the knowledge base for all the institutes involved and strengthening the capacity to plan, develop, and manage the marine and water resources. A 4 years program with 4 partners. This was a more demand driven. So the previous one was a more technology push, and this one of the lessons that was learned that the more the demand driven it is, the more commitment there is. However, the level of commitment will come back on the lessons learned. I will address that. It's executed in 2 pillars. One of them is really addressing a decision support system, or what we call a meta model, and another pillar which is including what we call a knowledge cooperation program that has multiple projects. So the projects were not defined in forehand, they were defined during the inception phase of the project. And these projects, one of them addressed the large-scale meta model, another of them addressed the riverbank erosion problem, which is one of the highest important problems in Bangladesh. The Go with the Flow project, another one which addressed the boulder of the future, which is mostly environment and fisheries friendly boulder design in a changing climate. Another of them is information for impact. Another one. So there are a number of projects. The message here that there is these projects were not defined in forehand; they were defined during the inception phase. What we learned in Bangladesh was, in fact, that the earlier the involvement, the better it is. The more frequent the participation and interaction, the more important it is. In that program, the government was not sitting in the table during the setup of these projects. So there was a bit of an uphill battle to create some ownership and commitment from the government in the first year of the project, which is taken care of in the second year of the project, to be honest. The training activities are very important. They create momentum. So the events create momentum. The capacity building is mostly done on the joint execution of projects, and a new challenge really we had to deal with in Bangladesh, which is the COVID-19. So there was a lot of restrictions, and it has a significant impact because it took the hit in the second year, which is let's say the critical year of a lifetime of a project like this. Normally, you spend the first year trying to define the project, trying to find out a way to move smoothly, etc. And then in the second year, you get your highest achievements. And then the COVID-19 hit. So that was really sad. But now we learned how to deal with it on an online manner. Online platforms has been created. Meetings, workshops are now running. Trainings are organized. And it started to get momentum again, Now, how does this help us go to Egypt, in fact? So, in fact, we try to focus on four components here is the issue of ownership. And for that, we started directly with direct communication with the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, the planning sector. For the setup of the program, we started the communication very, very early on what are the needs, what are the wishes, what are the opportunities, what are the knowledge gaps, etc. For the issue of sustainability, which we learned to be aware of from Indonesia, we try to cooperate directly with the national research centers, vis-a-vis the National Water Research Center, the Agricultural Research Center. And we try to embed a comprehensive training and capacity building program that also involves a wide range of participation from the ministry engineers. We try to focus in our communication plan on creating a community of practice to guarantee sustainability also in the universities, etc. Demand-driven, so that starts from the objective of the National Water Resources Master Plan. It supports these objectives identified in the master plan, and it seeks integration with running projects. And in order to create synergies, we try to run in two pillars: embed flexibilities, accommodate emerging questions, support a wide range of stakeholders. So this is, in fact, what one of the considerations that we had before we start. Going forward and try to map the let's say the ecosystem in Egypt. So we start with the National Water Resources Master Plan. It has its key dimensions. It has its objectives. And a key issue is the water security, of course. Going to the existing projects, we try to identify what is on the ground. So there is a very large ICCM project going on. There is an interesting JISA project going on. There is a controlled drainage that Ivo will present later. The EU is trying to prepare a large program on the EU Water Stars in its second phase, and the first phase is nearly finishing. I'm very impressed with the World Food Programme project, and I would like really to link with them as much as we can. There are also international agencies, whether it is donors, funding agencies, of course the long-lasting or the long-existing Egyptian Dutch high-level water panel is an important, let's say, platform to to link with. The UNDP is investing the Green Climate Fund is also investing. World Bank is looking to also improve their investment portfolio. The FAO, the World Food Program, the European Union. And on the other hand, we have also an emerging demands from the policy in Egypt by the Prime Minister formulating a new committee to look over the water resources management in Egypt. There are emerging questions. There are needs for scoping studies. There are needs for integration of environmental impact assessments or the strategic impact assessment studies to meet future challenges. So mapping these allows us also to set up a program which we set up with two major objectives. The first one is to support the ministry to prepare a clear pathway and an agenda for Egypt to deal with current and emerging water management and scarcity issues in order to prepare for future water challenges and to support an integrated planning, management, development of the water resources in Egypt in general, which is mandated by the newly established ministerial committee, and to improve environmental assessment and strategy development in the water sector, and in general, just to support Egypt meet its SDGs and the NWRB objectives. And the second one is to focusing on really the knowledge cooperation and so seeking a well-developed capacity within the ministry, within the National Water Research Center, Agricultural Research Center, all the partners and other relevant agencies to create partnerships with the institutes in Egypt and the Netherlands to address the knowledge questions that comes from that emerges from the National Water Resources Master Plan. This is meant to enhance the state of the art and the knowledge base of the Egyptian agencies involved. Also for the Dutch partners, we expect to gain a lot of knowledge by cooperation on these projects, and we hope to strengthen the capacity both in Egypt and the Netherlands to manage the water resources. We come to the setup. In general, it's a 4 years program, 5 key partners, with opportunities for more based on emerging questions, including a comprehensive capacity building program focusing on joint execution of activities. The setup is dynamic and flexible to allow emerging questions with a key beneficiary, the Ministry of Water Resources, which will coordinate with the other stakeholders, which we identify as knowledge clients, whether it's the WEAA, the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, Ministry of Transport, Sugar Protection Authority, etc. The fund comes from the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, so that is really to be appreciated. It is set up in two main pillars meant to support policy objectives. The pillar 1 focusing on the preparation or to meet objective 1, to prepare for the future water challenges, and pillar 2 focusing on the knowledge cooperation. And there are several activities in each of the pillar. Most of the training activities goes in pillar 2, and most of the policy related questions and the technical support activities, which is not yet to be identified, which is to be identified later, are in pillar 1. And there is of course a full integration between the two pillars. In pillar 1, we're really focusing on facilitating the ministry to prepare for the future challenges, providing platform for the high-level discussions, connecting with, brings about a wider range of stakeholders, including funding agencies, demand-driven activities that has to be identified to support the emerging questions, improving environmental and assessment and strategy development, which is a new, let's say, a demand that has been recognized by the last missions of the Netherlands Center the Netherlands Commission for Environmental Assessment. And the first part is really to support the government of Egypt ambition, which is recognized by the new prime ministerial decree and the ministerial decree to formulate a permanent committee to oversee the water resources management in Egypt. And the last one is, which is let's say the final part of the pillar, is to try to prepare policy briefs, white papers, etc., to support the decision making. In the second pillar, which is really focusing on knowledge cooperation, we started by identifying the National Water Resources Master Plan objectives. There are 4 major objectives: to improve the enabling environment for the integrated water resources management, enhance availability of freshwater resources. Objective 3 is to improve the water quality, and objective 4 is to enhance management of water use. And from these objectives, we try to identify the knowledge themes that can support these objectives, and this has been done in direct cooperation with the ministry and the planning sector in particular. I would like to thank Engineer Walid and Dr. Iman for their active and healthy discussions during the preparation of this program. And based on these knowledge themes, we try to generate project ideas that can directly support the knowledge theme. And we at this stage we are able to identify 5 project ideas. They are going to be further developed and improved in full participation with a wide range of stakeholders. But we aim to support each knowledge theme with a project in order to make it more tangible rather than having a lack of clarity.
Can I ask you to round off?
Yes. Last but not least, I would like to go through our partners. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time in these because I'm running out of time. So our partners is from Egypt, the National Water Resources Research Center, the Soils, Water and Environmental Research Institute from the Agricultural Research Center, the Wageningen Environmental Research from Wageningen University, and the Netherlands Commission for Environmental Assessment, and Deltares. I'm not going to elaborate further. I just want to focus on the last slide that I have is looking at what are the outputs that we foresee. We foresee that from each pillar we will end up with a number of outputs that support the ministry team in the role, execute preparatory and scoping studies, improved environmental assessment and strategy development in the water sector, policy briefs. But I would like to also attract the attention to, we also would like to mainstream the activities with donors and international funding agencies for effective investments. This is also an important output that we look for. From the second pillar, we look for a number of projects that answer knowledge questions originating from the National Water Resources Master Plan. We look to have a number of or a large number of trained Egyptian professionals, an establishment of partnerships, sharing of knowledge, supporting ongoing projects, other projects that we have identified, and enhance the capacity of the Egyptian partners and beneficiaries to secure a long-term funding for knowledge development from a wide range of funding opportunities. This was my last slide, and I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would be happy to answer any question.
Since we are also on the time schedule, I'm going to ask you one question.
Yep.
If you look at this project that's now starting and you compare it with Bangladesh and Indonesia, what's the one thing that makes it different for Egypt, or that is specific for the Egyptian program?
Yeah.
One sentence?
The unique thing here is we have established direct communication with the ministry from day one. So we have already the demand-driven component, the ownership, which was a bit of an uphill battle in both programs. So this is really unique in this regard.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed. And maybe there will be some more questions afterwards in the last 10 minutes, but we are now going to turn immediately to our last speaker, which is Ivo van Haren, who is my colleague at the embassy, working on water and food security. And Ivo is going to talk about our program that's also new, called controlled drainage, improved irrigation methods, and reuse of agricultural fresh drainage water in Egypt. Can I pass the mic to you, Ivo?
Thank you very much, Marjolein. This presentation, we'd like to give a brief about controlled drainage projects, which will be funded by the Netherlands Embassy. Well, 2 days ago, in the session of the National Drainage Project, Phase 3, Dr. Henk Ritsma of the Wageningen University Research already spoke in detail about the technical part of controlled drainage system. So that's not what we're going to do now. So I will mainly talk about the setup of the pilot project as it will be funded by the Netherlands Embassy. Well, as already mentioned during previous sessions of the Cairo Water Week, the population increase will cause pressure on water and land resources in Egypt, and a doubling of population expected in the next 35 to 40 years. So if you look to the water resources, one moment, I'll have to share the presentation. I see that there's something wrong with it.
Yes, please.
Yeah, maybe they can share it.
I hope Jane can help us out here as well.
Yeah, I just dropped out that, so I'm nearly there, I hope. Yes. So I think it must work now.
Not yet.
Well, 1 second. Okay, must work now. Oh. Yes,
yep.
there it is. Yeah. Sorry for the delay. Well, if you look to water, water availability could be increased through looking to alternative sources. Those are issues which have been discussed also during other sessions of the Cairo Water Week. You could think of groundwater desalination of seawater. You also could think of the reuse of wastewater. But what you also could do is the opposite, and to decrease the water demand. So, yeah, that's okay. Like in a lot of other countries in the world, most of the water in Egypt is used for agriculture. It's around 80 to 90%. And therefore, introduction of modern irrigation system became a priority of the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. During the Cairo Water Week of 2019 of last year, a controlled drainage pilot project was presented and endorsed by the Dutch-Egyptian high-level water panel. And also during the Cairo Water Week of 2019, it was recommended, if possible, as much as possible, to look for synergy between the proposed high-level water projects and the new Dutch Development Cooperation Program, as was just explained by Marjolein. So the Development Cooperation Program consists of a water budget and a food security budget, but there should be a linkage between the water pillar and the food security pillar. And this project fits well in the strategy of the program and is a clear link between the pillars. So if you look a little bit to the technical part of the controlled drainage system, what is it all about? It's actually about regulation of the groundwater level. And in a traditional drainage system, water is drained by gravity directly after irrigation, and it is uncontrolled. But in this system, the idea is to have such a system that the groundwater level can be controlled through drain and a pipe in a drain which can be put at different levels, depending on the level of groundwater which is required. So this requirement of the water level depends on the crop types. For example, for rice, rice needs water level which is shallow, but other types of crops need deeper groundwater. It also depends on the growing stage of the crops. For example, if you start preparing your field, you also want to have a lower groundwater level. So it can all be regulated by this system. And then there's not only a drainage system, but it's also an irrigation system. It's a combined system. It's subsurface, so tubes in the ground. But after draining the water, it can be brought back, pumped into the upstream part of the system, and used again for irrigation. Then what is the advantage and the challenges for the system? Well, the advantage is that it is saving water because of there's a better uptake of the water, and it can be used again through the irrigation part of the system. Because the water gifts are specific for the crops itself, it will also cause an increase of the yields. It's about 10% depending on the crop type, and it should also increase the income of the farmers. Then, because the water stays longer in the system, there's also better uptake of fertilizers. So less fertilizers needed, which are also less cost for the farmer. Can be up to 25% of the fertilizer used. And because the fertilizer is better uptaken by the plants, this means that it's better for the environment because there's less nitrate in surface and groundwater. So it improves the quality of the groundwater and surface water. But there, of course, are also challenges. And the main challenges are about the salinization of the soil, because the water stays for a longer period in the soil. It won't constantly drain the soil. So salinity may increase. That means you need a bit more leaching, which can be done, let's say, at the start of the growing season. Then another thing which is a challenge are costs, because you have costs for the installation, for the management and maintenance of the system, and also for the crop rotation. You have to adapt your system if you want to use different crops, the same fields. And then another thing which was especially addressed through this pilot project is the scale. So will this only be a system which can be used for larger farms, for large scale farms with 50 to 100 hectares, or can it also be used for smaller farmers? And that's something that has to be found out through this pilot. Then what is the pilot approach? The pilots will be done directly at farm level. It has been tested before, this controlled drainage in Egypt, but only at a scientific level at universities. So at a small scale and without direct involvement of the farmers. So it was more for a scientific approach, but that means that so far it has not been adopted by farmers, and that's why the idea is to test it now directly at farm level. For that, you need leading farmers who are known in a certain area and who can convince other farmers to have a look and try to adopt the system, explain what it's about. It also should be linked to existing projects where already farmers are aware of the introduction of new systems, and that they are already cooperating with this project. That helps in also adopting this type of drainage system. Then there's a cooperation with different levels. There's a cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation, with APAD, it's the drainage program. It's the Drainage Research Institute for the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. And also at local level, we will work together with water user associations. The idea is to have pilots at 3 different locations in Egypt, and the pilot areas that are at least 50 fathom. It should not be too small to apply the system, but it should have a certain area to test it well and to see what the benefits are. The outputs, let's say, of the pilot is to identify what are the economic benefits of farmers, because the farmers, they want to increase their income, and it should be something which is beneficial for them from an economical point of view. Then the pilot project will also develop a feasible and scalable business model and see what the impact will be on the environment. So it will also test through monitoring and measurements in the field whether the quality of irrigation and drainage water will be improved. Now, what will be the way forward? APAD will select 3 project locations. On the map, we can see where they are. It's in Beni Suef, Sharqiya, and Luxor governorates. So it's in 3 different locations in the country to work with different type of farmers, because more to the south in Upper Egypt, there are many small farmers, while in the Delta you have also larger farmers. But it's not only the scale, but it's also to do with the tradition and the way farmers are working in different parts of Egypt. The idea is after if the pilots are positive and the results are positive of the pilots, is to upscale it. And there are 2. We already spoke with the National Drainage Project. If it's positive, it will be taken up by this program and included in their program to enroll it. And the idea is also to look if there are any synergies with the project which was just presented from the Ministry of Agriculture, WFP, and Solidaridad. But one thing which is important, because this is a combined drainage and irrigation project, it's very important that there will be cooperation between the irrigation, drainage, extension authorities, the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Information. So they really have to work together to make this a successful project. So I'll leave it here and over to you, Marlijn.
Thank you, Ivo. I saw there was one question coming in, and that is you mentioned somewhere the better uptake of fertilizer as an advantage. And the question is why 25% less fertilizer uptake and not more?
Well, it's an estimate. It's something which still has to be found out during the pilot. But these are the first experience from the Netherlands where it's applied, and where it's also applied in a more scientific way. But perhaps it could be more if it's applied in Egypt. It could be, for example, in place where there is already too much fertilizer used. But the most important thing is to see what if the water stays longer in the system, how much fertilizer can be uptaken by the plants.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. No, actually, this 25% is 25% of what's normally drained of the fertilizers. So you use the fertilizers, part is taken up by the plants, and in the traditional system, part is drained. So of this part which is drained, more than 25% will now also be taken up by plants.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at the list of questions, and I think that these are the questions that came in. With that, I think we are slowly coming to the end of the presentations. And I thank all the participants, also for those that asked questions to our speakers. You noticed maybe that during the presentation of Solidaridad, there was a hiccup with the presentation, and I've been informed by the organizers that the recorded session or video of the session will be available on the Cairo Water Week website and the YouTube channel. But since this presentation wasn't shown, if you would like to have it, then please send an email to Kai, that is KAI @minbusa.nl, which is our embassy website, and we'll try our embassy email, and we'll try and get the presentation to you. Yes, I'd like to thank all our presenters, Nagle Atef, and also Monique Vanni and Alexander Hof from Solidaridad and Nelen and Schuurman, and Dr. Mohammed Youssef from Deltares and Ivo Verhagen from the embassy. Indeed, a lot of different programs that we're working on, and that we are keen to take up on. And we'd like to thank you very much for your attention. And finally, I'd also like to thank Jane Emad for her technical help during this session. Checking one more time if there are any final questions, but then I think by this time we'll sign off. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all, and good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Attention.